Good evening, I'm Nima Rajan, and this is Forum Daily for Friday, February 4th. We begin our newscast in Beijing, where Canadian flag bearers Marie-Philippe Poulin and Charles Amelan waved the maple leaf together at the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics. It was a cold and clear evening in Beijing as Chinese President Xi Jinping declared the Games open during a ceremony heavy on winter imagery. Canada didn't send any official representatives to the Games as part of a diplomatic boycott over human rights abuses. Competition began at the Games on Wednesday, and medal events are on tap for tomorrow. Statistics Canada says the economy lost 200,000 jobs in January. This is largely attributed to stricter public health rules meant to slow the spread of the Omicron variant. The unemployment rate rose to 6.5% last month, compared with 6.0% in December. StatsCan says the bulk of the job losses were in Ontario and Quebec, which implemented some of the strictest measures in the country. Food services and accommodations were among the hardest hit sectors. A look at Ottawa now as big rig horns are blaring throughout the streets around Parliament Hill for the 8th straight day of an anti-vaccine mandate protest. Ottawa police are deploying a surge of about 150 extra officers to central areas of the city to deal with what they call a well-funded, highly organized, and committed protest. In a recent news conference, protest organizers say they have been working with police to identify bad actors and security concerns. They also say they are not going anywhere until the federal government announces an end to all COVID-19 vaccine mandates and other pandemic restrictions. Meanwhile, Ontario is easing visitor restrictions at long-term care homes, as the government says public health indicators are starting to improve. Alberta and Saskatchewan are signaling their intentions to soon remove most remaining public health restrictions. The Saskatchewan Medical Association is warning that loosening health measures will strain the province's health care system. Scientists and health officials in Ontario and Quebec have warned that cases will likely rise again as partial reopenings progress. Turning to the Coutts border crossing now, as an RCMP spokesman says there's no way to predict when the protest at Alberta's main border crossing will end. Demonstrators began parking their trucks last Saturday near the crossing at Coutts, Alberta. This in solidarity with similar protests in Ottawa against COVID-19 vaccine mandates and broader public health measures. RCMP Corporal Curtis Peters says he understands the public's growing frustration as the demonstration drags on. Coutts Mayor Jim Willett says the protest has cut off village residents from medical services. Well, this comes as other Canadian cities have braced for similar demonstrations by people who oppose ongoing COVID-19 vaccine mandates and other public health restrictions. Winnipeg Police and Manitoba Legislature Security saw supporters of the Freedom Convoy roll into Winnipeg this morning. Quebec City is shoring up security around the Quebec National Assembly, and Toronto police are preparing for a planned protest at the Ontario Legislature tomorrow. Police plan to shut down some roads to ensure no trucks can block access to 4 busy hospitals nearby. Environment Canada has warned that widespread power outages are likely in parts of Atlantic Canada. This comes as a large, slow-moving storm brings snow and freezing rain to the region. Schools and government offices were closed in Nova Scotia earlier today. The rest of the region can expect to get pelted with a mix of heavy snow, ice pellets, and rain well into the weekend. Some good news in BC. The Provincial Health Services Authority says organ donation in the province climbed 23% last year. The authority says organs were recovered from a record 150 donors in 2021. This is up from the previous high of 122 donors in 2018. The authority also says BC set several new transplant records last year, including 66 lung transplants, 97 liver transplants, and 340 kidney transplants. Well, turning to the east now, where Dalhousie University in Halifax has signed a research partnership with Abu Dhabi University in the United Arab Emirates. The schools say that the partnership will create opportunities for faculty and students to participate in research and training. It is specific to the College of Health Sciences at Abu Dhabi University and Dalhousie's Faculty of Health. Students will be able to enroll in academic programs, participate in training, joint projects, and research between the two universities. A big milestone for the Queen as she marks 70 years on the throne on Sunday. Her remarkably long reign has made her a symbol of stability in the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and other Commonwealth countries. Stay with us. We'll be right back with our gas and energy update. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Canadians have been experiencing record prices at the pump, and those prices are expected to go higher. With us to take a look at energy prices in Canada is Dan McTeague, Senior Petroleum Analyst at GasWizard.ca. All yours, Dan.
Well, thank you very much for that again, Nima. Look, what a week. We've broken through all records as far as east to west, north to south in this country. And unfortunately, the message is not going to get any better. We've been warning for some time that Canada would face unprecedented price increases for all forms of energy, which would then make its way into everything else, including food prices. Now, while most opinion leaders don't like to talk about the reason behind it, much less be able to predict as we've done here, the reality is that much of this can be laid right at the feet of green policies and green schemes. And let me explain that. When a government comes out and says we're going to block pipelines in this country and we can't send the product that the world desperately needs right now, or when a government decides to put regulations and mandates in place to shoo away foreign investors, it's little wonder that you have some banks, and I give an example of National Bank of Canada, November 30th, saying Canada's lack of ability to attract capital, especially to its number one sector, is a very frightening prospect. And short of residential investments, Canada is actually losing the battle at attracting necessary funds to get itself out of this growth, out of this pandemic period, and get back on this path of growth to pay down debt. The more immediate problem is that we're seeing a Canadian dollar that is not responding in any way, shape, or form to the higher price of oil. And as a result, Canadians are not being properly shielded in the past when they were the petrodollar. And that's adding about 11 cents to the liter of gasoline. That alone, the result of driving away foreign investors and capital from our oil and gas sector. A lot of economists don't want to talk about it. I want to talk about it because I predict those prices. And because we predict those prices accurately, we also know what goes behind it. The second factor, no one likes to talk about it, carbon taxes. Yes, it's 10 cents a liter, like it or not, and HST on top of that makes a bad situation that much worse. So for all the folks out there who don't think anything of diesel and gasoline prices, wait till it starts to hit you in places that you can least imagine. The cost of transportation, the cost of doing business, public transport, the entire infrastructure of this country depends on affordable, reliable, available energy. And Canadian politicians have gone out of their way, most political stripes, to try to choke off this industry. And despite that sort of dire prediction, we're going to see another 3 to 4 cent increase on average this week. Oil's broken $92 a barrel, headed to 93. That means that we're going to see gasoline prices in places like British Columbia move to $1.75 a liter. It's $1.71.9 right now. Alberta, $1.47.9, again, testing all new highs. They've gone up 8 cents in the past week alone. Retailers tried to hold off, but didn't do very well. They had to throw in the towels. Ditto for Saskatchewan, where we're seeing 147 at many stations in Regina, Saskatoon. We'll see it, of course, in the rural areas as well. Manitoba seems to be the holdout in Winnipeg, but that should change this weekend, 146, 147.9. Ontario, look for prices to break over $1.60 a liter. Quebec, we're looking at possibly hitting towards $1.69. Don't think we'll hit $1.70. And of course, the Maritimes, with Nova Scotia having a bit of a game with their cap and trade, might see a gasoline move to 156, 157, while neighboring New Brunswick will probably be in the 159, 160 range. And Newfoundland, unfortunately, over $1.70 a liter to $1.72 come Thursday and Friday under the regulated system. Doesn't really matter what it is. Do not blame the oil companies. I did that for 20 years when it came to other factors of trying to snuff out independent gas retailers. This has nothing to do with them, and this one is on us. When we want to vote for green policies and green schemes that are crippling Europe, that are making shortages in the United States, it's inevitable that Canada cannot come to the rescue. We have the potential. It's the third largest provable reserves in the world, but we can't get a product to market because we've got politicians in this country looking to shut down pipelines and destroy the infrastructure. Not just the infrastructure for oil and gas, but the infrastructure that supports all of our social programs. So These are realities. Canadians are going to have to make a decision pretty darn soon. Do they want inflation? Do they want a standard of living that continues to be eroded? Or do they want to get back to the good old days of responsible energy production, while at the same time ensuring that Canadians can make ends meet in a prosperous, enviable country? Nima, that's it for this week. It's enough said. Looking forward to next week, and fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be very expensive.
Lots to think about for this week. Dan, thanks for that. That was Dan McTeague, Senior Petroleum Analyst at GasWizard.ca. All right, up next, we'll be looking at our weekly cryptocurrency and digital asset update with Catherine Murray. Catherine Murray is the host of The Buck Stops Here, where she and her guests look at finances and the markets. After that, of course, more news from around the world, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Up next, we'll be taking a look at developments in the world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets with Catherine Murray, host of The Buck Stops Here. All yours, Catherine.
Thanks, Seema. Hello, everyone, and welcome to your weekly crypto and digital asset update. I am Catherine Murray. Well, we have actually seen some stabilization in cryptocurrencies this week, with the total market cap around $1.6 trillion. Let's see where today closes, though, and what that trillion-dollar mark might look like, because we are, in fact, seeing Bitcoin up by about 10% today and Ether up by about 13%. So a huge rally, actually, today to close out the week, which is kind of nice to see. This as the U.S. 10-year yield hits 1.9%. And I bring that up because if you recall, rising rates have been putting pressure, downward pressure, on cryptocurrencies, assets, and also, of course, tech stocks. That is not the case today. And perhaps it's because in conjunction with that 1.9% U.S. 10-year yield, we had a blowout U.S. jobs report, far surpassing expectations and also revising the prior 2 months up. So what that might mean to investors is that it could be the best of both worlds. In other words, the U.S. economy looks to be on very strong, solid footing, and therefore it can withstand rate hikes. So it's not spooking investors the way we've seen it over the past couple of weeks. And in fact, the odds now for 50 basis points increase in rates at the March meeting has gone up to 44% probability, up from 10% prior to the jobs report. Away from that, there's a lot of global news going on in cryptocurrencies this week. Jamaica's central bank is planning to launch their own digital currency this quarter. India's financial minister said that they will launch a digital coin in April. And they're also going to impose a 30% tax on income earned from crypto transactions, but that the losses cannot be used to offset any gains. Interesting. Thailand's revenue department no longer plans to enforce a 15% withholding tax on crypto transactions. And according to reports, Russia apparently controls about $250 billion worth of crypto. Galaxy Digital has filed with the SEC to relocate from the Cayman Islands to Delaware and also to list on the NASDAQ under ticker GLXY. And interesting here as well, we talked a little bit about this in terms of legal tender last week. Arizona's Senator Wendy Rogers has introduced a bill proposing to add Bitcoin to a list of acceptable legal tenders. If passed, Bitcoin could be used to pay debt and to pay taxes. Keep in mind, of course, this still has to be passed in the Senate as well as the House of Representatives. We also have heard that Shopify's founder and CEO, so a huge Canadian tech success story, as you know, that he is going to be joining the Coinbase board. Of course, that's subject to approval. We've also heard more fundraising going on. The crypto exchange called FTX just raised $400 million, valuing the company at $32 billion. And popular Reddit platform founder has raised $510 million for another crypto-focused fund. Interesting as well, when we think about inflation, we've talked about this story and it's continuing to get attention. Turkish investors have pivoted again and again to crypto as inflation soars and their currency declines. And lastly, I'll leave it on this note. Bloomberg notes that the trading platform Crypto.com is estimating that 1 billion people will invest in crypto this year. That is 3 times the size of last year. Nima, I'll leave it there. Back to you.
Always a lot of growth in the crypto world, Catherine. Thanks for that. For more analysis and news on the markets, tune in to Catherine Murray on The Buck Stops here on the News Forum Network. All right, well, meanwhile, Meta is putting a lot of virtual eggs and billions of dollars into the metaverse basket, and Wall Street looks like it's spooked. Shares of the company formerly known as Facebook saw a historic plunge on Thursday after it reported a rare profit decline. This was due to a sharp rise in expenses, shaky ad revenue growth, and fewer daily U.S. users on its flagship platform. At the same time, it invested more than $10 billion in its ambitious plan to transform Meta Platforms Incorporated into a metaverse company. Shares fell more than 23%, lopping off more than $215 billion of the company's market capitalization. Stay with us. Coming up after the break, we'll have news from around the world. The U.S. economy adds over 400,000 jobs in January. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has been named Norway's central bank governor. A Hong Kong activist has been arrested before the start of the Winter Olympics in Beijing, and hundreds of boys are still unaccounted for after an attack by the so-called Islamic State on a Syrian prison. We'll have these stories and more after the break. In a surprising burst of hiring, America's employers added 467,000 jobs in January. This is a sign of the economy's resilience, even in the face of a wave of Omicron infections last month. The government's report also drastically revised up its estimate of job gains for November and December by a combined 709,000. It also said the unemployment rate ticked up from 3.9% to a still low 4%. This is mainly because more people began looking for work, and not all of them found jobs right away. The strong hiring gain for January, which defied expectations for only a slight gain, demonstrates the eagerness of many employers to hire, even as the pandemic raged. Turning to Norway now, where NATO's Secretary General, Jens Stoltenberg, will be the next governor of the country's central bank. His tenure at the Transatlantic Military Alliance ends later this year. The 62-year-old Mr. Stoltenberg is a former finance minister and prime minister of Norway, and he became NATO's Secretary General in 2014. Norway's government announced his central bank appointment today and hopes he can start in December. Some troubling news in Syria, as an international human rights group says hundreds of boys are missing from a Syrian Kurdish prison that held members of the Islamic State group and their families. The U.S.-backed Kurdish forces fought militants for 10 days to retake the facility. Today's report by Human Rights Watch came a day after the Islamic State group's top leader was killed in a U.S. raid on his safe house in northwest Syria. Trade issues continue following Brexit, as a judge has suspended an order by Northern Ireland's agriculture minister to halt border checks on goods from the rest of the UK. The checks were imposed under the Brexit agreement struck between the UK and the European Union. Agriculture Minister Edwin Poots sparked a political crisis when he ordered officials to stop checks on agri-food products at midnight Wednesday. Civil servants have continued the checks amid legal uncertainty, and Mr. Poots' decision is being challenged in the courts. Backlash over the Olympics could lead to criminal penalties in Hong Kong. A veteran Hong Kong activist has been arrested days after announcing to protest the Beijing Winter Olympics outside government offices. South China Morning Post newspaper identified him as Ku Shiyu. Police confirmed they have arrested a 75-year-old man on suspicion of inciting subversion. Police also said that 4 other people were being questioned. Earlier this week, Mr. Ku sent a media announcement inviting coverage of a petition he planned to present on Friday. This in front of China's liaison office, the agency representing the Chinese government. He said that China had pressed on with the Beijing Winter Games while ignoring what he called unjust cases of imprisonment and political oppression in Hong Kong. In Austria, a law requiring adults in the country to get vaccinated against COVID-19 is ready to take effect. But the sense of urgency that accompanied its announcement in November has largely evaporated. Few other countries look likely to follow Austria's example as attention turns to loosening restrictions. The The mandate for people 18 and over to get vaccinated cleared its last legislative hurdle Thursday night. It's expected to become law in the coming days. It isn't clear when or even whether the toughest part of the plan, which was watered down from the initial proposal, will take effect. Sri Lanka has celebrated its Independence Day with an appeal by the president to the country's expats to send money home. The island country is struggling with the worst economic crisis in decades, mainly due to depleted foreign reserves. Sri Lankans are facing shortages of milk powder, cooking gas, kerosene, and other essentials. Cash shortages have also hindered imports of raw materials for manufacturing and worsened inflation. Meanwhile, in North Africa, a third day of efforts to rescue a 5-year-old boy who fell into a well in northern Morocco is continuing. The boy, identified as Rayan, fell into a 32-meter deep well located outside his own home in Morocco on Tuesday. Search crews used 5 bulldozers to dig vertically, according to Morocco's official MAP news agency. A relative of the banana that grows in the Ethiopian highlands is being called a wonder crop that could feed millions in the warming world. That's according to scientists researching the drought-resistant insect known as a banana on steroids. People in Ethiopia use it to make porridge and bread. A study out this week suggests the crop could live up to its name by helping fight malnutrition elsewhere in Africa. All right, I'm Nima Rajan, and that'll do it for your look at national and international news for today. Remember, for more news on demand, you could always visit our website, thenewsforum.ca. All right, take care, Canada. We'll see you next time on Forum Daily News.